Hello everyone, we are from Makó Micro-Press, and in today's episode of Areté Makerspace, we will be learning how to make zines, their origins and their relevance in building transformative connections with yourself, your fellows, and your communities. So what are zines? Zines are basically do-it-yourself, cheaply made, self-published thoughts that are usually photocopied in amounts depending on your preference if you want to share them with other people. According to Adam David, the founder of the local zine event BLTX, zines are the most accessible, most immediate, and the most egalitarian expression of printed thought available to all. In the 1930s, zines were originally referred to as prozines or fanzines. Prozines would refer to zines that are made by professional writers and designers, while fanzines, on the other hand, would refer to the zines created by fans of a certain community. Particularly, fanzines started popping up within the science fiction community as a way to express their fascination of the genre that also served as their medium to create their own imaginative stories. Eventually, zine making was picked up by the punk music scene of the 70s and the 80s as a way to promote their gigs and events and also serve as a common language that bind their underground community. And within the male-dominated punk scene of the times, zine making was also utilized by the feminist punk subculture known as the Riot Girl movement as a reaction to this domination. As a result, zine making was no longer made only by fans and professionals of certain groups, and the term evolved into a much broader and more inclusive term, zine. But if you look at zines as a form of self-publishing, or as expressions of printed thoughts and narratives that are made public, the history of zine making goes way further back. Throughout the times, zine making or self-publishing was an active and creative force against oppressive dominations, similar to the one witnessed within the punk music scene. During the Spanish colonization, it is known as the revolutionary press, publishing revolutionary works that run counter to the dominant narratives and stories made by the colonizers. The Kalayaan ng Katipunan, La Solidaridad, and the Diaryong Tagalog are just several examples of the zines published during that time. It then became known as the guerrilla press when the Americans, the Japanese, came to occupy our lands during the World War. The self-publishers during these times are the Matanglawin, the Liberator, and the Voice of the Free People. And then martial law happened, compelling all advocates and freedom-loving individuals and collectives to resort to the underground press or mosquito press to publish stories and relevant news that were otherwise repressed and disregarded by the mainstream media, which was also controlled by the regime. Examples of self-publishers during martial law would include the WE Forum, the Inquirer, Pahayagang Malaya, and the student publication Kule. It is also worth noting that most of the journalists who spearheaded the self-publishing against the dictatorship were women who risked their lives for freedom and democracy, contributing largely to the ouster of the dictator. Now, in our contemporary times, zines became part of the alternative press, which goes against the mainstream press. Zines nowadays, in form and in content, go against the prevalent negative propaganda, profit, and the status quo. Simply put, we can say that zines came into being as alternative spaces that seek to demarginalize voices of sectors and communities that are intentionally and unintentionally disenfranchised by the system. So how do zines and zine making become a mode of transformative connection? Zines do not require talent or artsiness or being a creative genius. In making zines, what's important is 1. For you to be able to speak, express, and communicate what you want to say by how you want to say it. And 2, for you to be able to connect and resonate yourself with your kapwa or fellows and with your communities. Essentially, zine making is a transformative process because it nurtures the culture of collaboration, the culture of ugnayan, and the culture of pakikipagkapwa-tao. It encourages and empowers you to see yourself in the other, deepening your empathy and care towards yourself and other people. Making zines or self-publishing in general is a right. It is your right and it is our right. Having said all of that, how do we start making our own zine? First, think of a possible topic. Here, the only limit is your imagination. Do you want it to be anecdotal, investigative, or do you want to talk about personal thoughts or sentiments? Or do you want it to be political, or just want to be light, fun, or humorous? Do you have memories you want to recollect, or do you have a question you want to answer or explore? After choosing your topic, we move on to step 2. Here, you must plan your intent and message. Think of your who's and why's. Who are you making this for and why are you making it? Is it for yourself? Is it for your friends or family? Or is it for the society at large? In zine making, the process of making your zine is as important as its content. So use everything you can to convey your message effectively. You can do a collage of images or a collection of photographs or a collection of poems. You can even draw your own comic strips, or you can combine everything that I have just mentioned. On the third step, we check and gather all the readily available materials around you. Do you want to write or draw your zine manually? Or are you good in digital programs such as Photoshop? You can use any of the two, whichever you are most comfortable. If you are going to do it manually, then you can use any available ink source and any available surface to write on. Manual zine making materials commonly include scrap papers, old newspapers, magazines, scissors, coloring pens, pencils, and adhesives. Moving on to the fourth step, you will now choose your zine format. Here, you will choose your most feasible and most reproducible type of zine fold. The two most common and most basic zine formats is the two-fold zine and the cut and fold zine. In the two-fold zine, you can opt to bind your zine or not. It can be stapled or stitched, screwed, or simply folded in the middle to firmly compile the pages. On the other hand, the cut and fold zine format only uses a single paper. The usual types of cut and fold includes the 8-fold zine and the 16-fold zine. But in our purpose today, we are going to learn about the 16-fold zine format, like this very zine that we are using right now. For your convenience, we will flash the step-by-step visual guide for this format. Feel free to pause the video so you can easily follow the steps. So first, we get our piece of paper. And as the name of this format goes, we fold it in 16 equal parts. So fold it in 4 equal parts vertically, and fold it again in 4 parts horizontally. After that, we get our pair of scissors, or sometimes we can use a cutter, but I prefer that you use scissors. Make sure to ask for help if you find this difficult or dangerous, especially for the kids. So, we cut it in 3 parts. Basically, we are making a letter M in our paper. The parts of the paper that we need to cut is shown on the screen right now. After cutting the paper, we now proceed in folding our zine. So we start on this corner part of the paper, and we start by folding this part inward, which is also known to be a valley fold. Next is we fold it outward, or we make a mountain fold. Basically, we do a valley fold and a mountain fold alternately until we cover the whole area of the paper. So here is our final product. As you can see, in this type of zine fold, we will be able to use at least 18 pages and at most 26 pages. After doing this, we can now move to our 5th step, which is to draft and sketch out your texts and images you want to put on each page. After drafting your zine, you can go ahead and start creating. After finalizing your zine, you can now begin with the sixth and final but optional step of sharing and distributing your zine. So you can do this by photocopying your zine using a photocopying machine such as a Xerox or a risograph. And then the amount of the copies you will produce depends on your preference and your discretions. So with that, we end our tutorial here. We hope that you learned from this video and have an appreciation towards zines and zine making, and that we have encouraged you to make your very own zines. We would love to see your work, so feel free to tag Areté Ateneo and Makó Micro-Press so that we may be able to feature your creations in our social media pages. Thank you so much, and we hope to hear from you soon. Stay safe, healthy, and empowered.